Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Duncan Graham from Retail Excellence. I'd like to welcome you to another of our Reboot webinar series. It's been a very difficult couple of weeks for all of us in retail, and certainly the next few weeks don't look as though they're going to be much easier. Today we're going to talk about two things. I'm going to talk first off and give you a little bit of a brief update on where we stand with the government and COVID. I'll talk very briefly about that. And then we'll turn our attention to the next big challenge, which is Brexit. And most of this is going to be devoted to Ray Ryan, who I'm going to introduce in a minute, who will talk through some of the challenges facing us in terms of Brexit from a revenue perspective. As always with these things, if you'd like to ask some questions as you go through, please post your questions in the chat box below, and we'll do a bit of a Q&A with Ray at the end of this. First and foremost, let me just give you a bit of an update on where we stand with COVID and the reopening of retail. Clearly, we are now 2 weeks in to another unprecedented situation. We're continuing to lobby government hard for a faster opening or reopening of the retail sector. You may be aware the government have said that it is 6 weeks, but they would do some sort of review after 4 weeks. That pretty much takes us to middle of November, and that's the time that we are pushing to get some form of reopening. We want to have a smooth reopening of retail. We know there have been difficulties, and the government know there have been difficulties with the essential versus non-essential message that's been coming through. We certainly are looking to try and get retail back up and running for the Black Friday or the Green Friday, whichever way you want to put it. And we want to make sure that government are doing the absolute best to promote Irish during this period. Some of the things that we've spoken to them about is opening up with appointment shopping, perhaps as the lead-in to a full opening at the end of November. But certainly we need a smooth run-in to these next few weeks. We will update you further on how things progress with those government conversations via our member newsletters and via this media as we go forward over the next couple of weeks. The next thing is to really just talk to you about Brexit, and that's what today's webinar is about. Believe it or not, I've just been looking at the calendar there, that we have 8 weeks to Brexit, 8 weeks to the 1st of January 2021. Some of us would say that 2021 can't come soon enough, but Brexit is around the corner. And obviously negotiations between the EU and the UK are continuing. There's no final conclusions yet, you know, we watch with bated breath to see whether we're into a deal or a no deal situation. We have set up this webinar today to brief you in terms of where revenue sits, and we'll continue to provide updates via our member newsletter. There's one coming out tomorrow, and we'll start to put more information on our website. And what I would draw your attention to is there is plenty of information around Brexit, both on the gov.ie website and through the Revenue website and through websites like the Enterprise Ireland website. Anyway, today I'm delighted to welcome Ray Ryan, who is the Assistant Principal in Revenue, responsible for trader engagement. He's working in the Brexit unit in Revenue, and I know Ray is going to take you through his thoughts and how Revenue are preparing for Brexit. And as I say, at the end of it, we'll take some questions. So Ray, over to you. Thank you for joining us.
Just one sec there. Ray, you might just need to accept something on your screen there just to turn on your camera and just to unmute yourself.
That's better.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
No bother.
Thanks, Duncan, and thanks for the opportunity for being able to speak to your members today. Unfortunately, it's more, I suppose, concerns for businesses and worry for business in terms of preparation for Brexit on top of everything that's happened this year. And as you said, it's 8 weeks away. So I suppose the focus of my presentation today will really be on actions you can take and what's required from the 1st of January if you are moving goods I won't go into too much details in relation to the negotiations or anything like that. I'll just briefly touch on it. And just for information, the website is there in relation to Brexit. We've added a lot more granular information onto it in the last few weeks. So it's gone from high level down to more detail on what's required for an import or what declarations are required. And it will get more granular for different agencies. So as we get closer to December, even for drivers and hauliers, what they're required to do and that type of thing. And even today, I know we have a Q&A session, but if you can send any queries into that email address too, and we'll come back to you too, especially if it's more detailed and kind of something you might want to share on the call itself. So I suppose just reiterating what Duncan had said, it's 8 weeks to go. Brexit has happened. The UK have already left the EU. It's actually a transition period now we're in. So that's ending on the 31st of December. So the ending of that means that the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, will be considered a third country for customs purposes. That means it's outside the customs regime and customs formalities will apply. So just I'll touch briefly on the Northern Irish piece because the rest of the presentation is really focused on GB. In terms of goods moving on the all-island basis, there is no customs declarations required. There is no customs formalities. There is no border as such. So there's no changes there. You're still going to do your reporting as you currently do in terms of the VIS records or anything that you do record to revenue in terms of buying or selling goods north-south. So it's just to bear that in mind that the rest of the presentations are really focused on the moving the goods to GB or from GB or through GB. So again, those customs formalities, they will apply and they include customs declarations. The next few slides, I'll go through the importing, exporting and transiting scenarios, just to give you an idea of the declarations that will apply. And it's just important to remember that these declarations will be required to move your goods from the 1st of January. So if you're planning to move goods from GB, at any early stage, you really need to know what the declarations are and who's going to do them on your behalf. So again, it's only 8 weeks away, so it's time for action now if you haven't taken certain steps. Just to give you an idea, I suppose, of the retail sector, and I put in the wholesale sector because some people are linked into that as well. Obviously, within the retail, they're buying from wholesalers in Ireland. So you can see there are 11,000 businesses we identified as traded with the UK in 2019. So over 60% of them have a IORI. There's still 4,000 businesses without a IORI. That IORI number is the customs registration number. So that's a minimum bit of information you do need to have done to allow you to put that number on a customs declaration. So even if you're having an agent or someone on your behalf doing the declarations, they need this IORI number off you, and it's the minimum thing you need. So it takes a few minutes if you're registered on Revenue Online Service to do it. There's a video there that you can do it. And again, if you look at even those over 50,000, 400 businesses still don't have a IORI. So that's something that would be of concern for revenue, and obviously for businesses that are trading with GB, they need to have that step done. And again, in the wholesale sector, maybe you mightn't be involved in it, but it just could be part of your supply chain to ensure that someone that's supplying you from Ireland, a wholesaler in Ireland, to ensure they have the steps taken so that you can get your goods. That if they haven't that step taken to register or to have the customs declarations done, you're obviously not going to get supplied from them because they can't get it from the UK. So it's just something to bear in mind if you're having a conversation in the next week or so with your wholesalers or with your suppliers. What steps have they taken? So if you've certain preparations done, you think you've your steps done, just have a think about where your goods come from, how you're getting them, and have the people in your supply chain taking the steps they need to do to make sure that the goods can flow in 2021. So just in terms of the import formalities themselves, so when do they apply? Again, it's from the 1st of January. In the UK, there is certain leeway on certain things up until July, but from the 1st of January, within all EU member states, full customs declarations apply from involving GB. So again, I'll just go through some of the import and export on this page. So in terms of importing, this will require a customs declaration. So you'll need a customs import declaration lodged in advance of departure from GB, and also a safety and security declaration. So there's actually 2 declarations required. Now the safety and security declaration is the responsibility of the carrier. So if that's maybe a haulier or maybe the company, the logistics company will do it, but that needs to be done. And both those need to be done in advance of leaving GB. So again, it's an important thing to remember that these are done in advance of leaving GB rather than on arrival in Ireland. So it's just important to remember that it might be a change in the way your model is operating currently, that it might be very just-in-time delivery, that you're not getting invoices in time or you're not getting them out. All that information will be required before the goods can even leave GB. So it's important to remember that you get those details. And there's a lot of information required on the customs declaration. Currently, you may be only given minimum information to maybe a haulier or even getting minimum information back from a supplier, you may need a lot more information in terms of commodity codes, the valuation, even the origin of the goods. For example, some products that's been supplied from GB might actually be coming from China or the US. So they're already coming from third countries, but you haven't, I suppose, been involved in that process. It still requires a customs declaration, but the important thing to note is if you are getting a supplier your goods from GB, they may be paying duties on it coming in from China, and then when it comes into Ireland, there'll be more duties on it. So again, it's something to bear in mind. Have that discussion with your supplier in the UK. How are they doing it? They can actually put it under procedures that basically doesn't charge import duties in GB. They can put it into customs warehousing. So it's definitely consideration for a lot of businesses that you may be getting goods from the UK, but they're not actually UK origin. They're from other third countries. So again, obviously, if they're paying for the duties in GB and then subsequently supplying them to you, the cost is going to increase, and then you're paying import duties here as well. So it's just something to bear in mind in relation to that. On the import declarations themselves, then obviously they're subject to interventions and license requirements. Again, that goes back to the commodity code and the type of product you're doing. So there are certain license requirements, there are certain interventions, obviously, the main one being the agri-food, plant health, that type of thing in relation to agriculture checks, and they will be required to be stopped. So again, if you're bringing in loads from a supplier in the UK that has maybe a mix of food and non-food items, the whole load will get stopped on the way in so that it can be subject to interventions from the Department of Agriculture and they can carry out their checks. But that means the full load is stopped and waiting, rather than if you have the capacity to be able to, I suppose, split those, that you keep all the food items together and then have a separate order or separate delivery for the non-food items, then you're less likely to get stopped on the non-food items because there's less interventions required on those. So it's just something to bear in mind, again, in a discussion that you may have had already, or that you may need to have with your haulage company or your freight forwarder, and how they're moving the goods, and have they considered the implications of, even for them, for their own business, that the delays they may encounter if they do have mixed loads like that. In terms of the import declarations, then that commodity code is also linked to the payment of duties. So the commodity code and the origin are linked to the amount of customs duty that's paid, and then there's also VAT at import. So they will be due on arrival as such. Now, there is different options that you can get deferred payment authorizations that delays the payments of the good for till the 15th of the following month. That would aid cash flow. There is guarantees required around that. So again, that's a consideration. And also just bear in mind that it's not in yet. I'm expecting an email actually in relation to the timeline on it, but there's postponed accounting being brought in for VAT, so that the VAT at import will not actually be required to be paid at the point of importation. So it can be done as your normal bi-monthly returns that currently happen. So that's due to get passed legislation, I think, by the end of this month. But it's something to bear in mind that obviously if you are looking at deferred payment or those options, it could reduce down the amount of guarantee you need to pay, because VAT won't actually apply at the point of importation. And again, it's a discussion that if you're doing the declarations yourself and you have the ORI number, then you have a TAN, what's known as a TAN. And in that TAN number, you can actually top up to revenue the amount, and that TAN number can be used on the customs declaration, either by yourself, obviously, or by an agent. They can do it on your behalf. The other option then is the agent actually pays on your behalf and then invoices you subsequently. But obviously there's charges linked to that, to using their TAN as such. So again, there are different options in relation to payments, and I can take questions on that afterwards if you want. So that's, I suppose, some of the detail in relation to the imports. The key thing to remember is that, I suppose, a change in the models is that that import declaration needs to be done, so that the data needs to be gathered in relation to what's on board leaving the UK and what can be done prior to departure from GB. The goods can't board the ferry without those declarations done. So just bear that in mind. So moving on to exports then, I know in the retail sector it mightn't be as significant, but it's still a significant part of a lot of businesses anyway. So sending goods to GB, again, this requires a customs declaration, so customs export declaration. On imports, it's in the AIS system, which is actually, there's a new import system launching in the end of November, but the export system is AAP. So if you're doing importing and exporting, you're actually dealing with two different declaration systems for revenue as well. Just for the exports, then it does require a safety and security declaration. The difference between the import and export is that at export, that safety and security declaration data can be fed into the export declaration. So it's a combined version. And in the majority of cases currently, they're all combined. So it's just one declaration is done in relation to that. Again, these may be subject to intervention or license requirements. Usually the license requirements at export will be around chemicals or products like that, but there may be some agri-related interventions as well, just to bear that in mind. And another thing to bear in mind is that if you are exporting, that you may be responsible for completing the import formalities in the third country. So if you're delivering door to door, it may be expectation that your supplier in the UK expects you to complete the UK import formalities. So that's something definitely to clarify in advance of the new year. If you are exporting goods, what's the expectation? Who's doing the different exports in Ireland? Obviously, is of concern to revenue, but then for your own concern to get the goods to your customer, who's going to complete those import formalities in the third country? The final point on that slide is in relation to pre-boarding notifications. I'll go through that later. It's the reason we need these declarations done in advance is there's pre-boarding notifications required. So your driver of the vehicles will need those pre-boarding done. It just relates to Ro-Ro ferry services. This is just a piece I just said I put in because some in the retail sector will be doing mixed loads in terms of the animal and plant products. It's just a very quick slide in relation to if you are moving goods of animal products, they need to actually have a 24-hour notice to DAFM prior to arrival in Ireland. So it's something to bear in mind. You also need to register with DAFM in relation to being an importer or an exporter. And there's more details available on that website there. It's actually, that the link might be incorrect. I think it's gov.ie/agriculture/Brexit. I think that's incorrect there, apologies. So it's gov.ie/agriculture/Brexit. So you'll find it on that, but it's just to bear that in mind if you are involved in the movement of those, that you need to register with agriculture as well as register with revenue, and then you need to do those pre-notifications 24 hours in advance for certain goods. Just going on to the moving goods through GB. So you may be sourcing products from the EU or moving products to the EU and it's moving through GB. So again, this requires a declaration, a customs declaration. It's called a transit declaration. There's actually a guarantee linked to it. So you have to have a guarantee in place to be able to submit transit declarations. So if you are moving goods over the land bridge, it is a transit declaration that's required. So it requires one declaration rather than four. The four would be if you're exporting from Ireland, importing to GB, and then exporting GB and importing back into the EU. The transit declaration replaces the need for doing the import and export. Again, these may be subject to intervention, but obviously if it's union goods moving to union, there's less interventions required. It does require opening a transit declaration at an office of departure. There's office of transit formalities to be completed in the UK, and there is office of destination requirements to close the transit. So again, it's something, if you are moving goods via the land bridge, you really need to be aware of how to do this, who's going to do it, and who's going to close it, importantly, because that closure of the transit is linked to the guarantee. There is options for simplified procedures, which basically means that you can open and close the transit at your premises or at a designated premises. And again, they're linked to certain authorizations. And that pre-boarding notification, obviously it's using the land bridge, it is definitely coming by Ro-Ro. So you just need to be aware that there's pre-boarding notifications required. I'll go through that in a separate slide. Yeah, just going on to the roll-on, roll-off, the pre-boarding notification that I mentioned. This customs roll-off service is being launched on the 1st of January too. So it's basically a facility for truck drivers and those that are moving the goods. So the pre-boarding notification is required. So imagine if you're moving goods on a vehicle that's going Ro-Ro, leaving GB, as I said, you need those import declarations done. The haulier may have 20 or 30 different customers on board. He would need 20 or 30 different MRNs, and they need to be added onto this pre-boarding notification, including the safety and security declaration. So they all get combined into this electronic envelope, for want of a better phrase, which is the pre-boarding notification. And the ferry companies are required that pre-boarding notification before they allow any vehicles on board. So something to bear in mind, maybe you're a company that has a full load and it's just the MRNs that you need to provide to your haulier. But if you're part of, I suppose, multiple consignments with a haulier, obviously you need to present your MRN details, the master reference number, the import declaration number to your haulier. They need to create the pre-boarding notification then with the other details. So it's important that that's part of the supply chain process now from the 1st of January, that if you have your import formalities done, you still need to give information to your haulier to allow them to create this pre-boarding notification. And same at export. So if you're doing an export declaration, the export MRN needs to go into that pre-boarding notification, and you won't be allowed to board the ferry unless that's completed. So again, there's just other additions outside of the customs declarations as such. These are pre-boarding notifications that are required. And the reason for that import is that it allows us to do a lot of the work that we can do, I suppose, in the background. We can clear some documentary checks as the ship is, or as the ferry is sailing. So it does try to speed up that just-in-time models that a lot of people are operating, and try and speed the flow of goods through the ports. The other two options there are the channel lookup and the parking self-check-in. I won't go into those today because it's linked to what the drivers will have to do when they're on board the ferry in terms of looking up the channel and then checking in when they're actually called to customs. So I can skip on to those two. If there's any questions, I'll take them at the end anyway. Just in relation to some special procedures that are available from customs, there are authorizations that can maybe aid you in dealing with customs and suspend some of the duties that are on it. I mentioned the simplified transit that covers moving your goods from premises. So if you're transiting goods through the UK, it allows you, rather than going to the export office in Dublin Port, for example, it allows you to open the transit declaration at your premises and you can just move straight onto the ferry once you've that pre-boarding declaration done. And again, it allows you to move goods on inbound to your premises as well. So there's authorizations around that. Inward processing is linked into, if you're bringing the goods in for further processing, you can suspend the duties on those goods being brought in because they're being further processed here. And outward process is a similar idea that you're sending goods out for processing and they'll be returned. So again, you're paying the duty on the value added as such. Temporary storage and warehousing will be useful, I think, for a lot of retailers, especially if you're buying in bulk. So if you buy something in bulk, but you don't actually maybe use it on the factory floor or sell it, in your retail outlets for a number of months, you can store it in customs warehousing. So if you have certain products that maybe you're bringing in January, but they won't actually be going on sale on your floor until March or April, that you can actually suspend the duty. So it goes into customs warehousing procedure. They're stored there. And once another import declaration is done, I suppose then to pay the duties at the time you actually need to use it. So it's a cash flow facilitation. The temporary admission, probably not as relevant for retailers, but it could be in terms of if we ever get back to doing exhibitions and fairs and that type of thing, moving goods under temporary admission will be a way to provide reliefs on customs duty, moving products and that. Just bear in mind that all these require a financial guarantee and also an application and an authorization process of Revenue. So if you do think something will be of benefit to you, I would encourage you to apply to Revenue immediately, in particular on warehousing and the simplified transit. And if there's any queries, you can send it to Brexit queries or directly to the Revenue units. So just, I suppose, a quick recap on some of the stuff and just reminders on some of the important considerations. So I mentioned that URI number, I showed you figures in relation to those that have it. It's a high proportion do have it, but those that don't, they won't be able to actually engage with any revenue custom systems, or they won't be able to get anyone to do declarations on their behalf without that URI number. And then in terms of those applications, that you need to have the URI number to actually apply for the authorizations too. So it's something that it can be done very fast. It can be done in 2 or 3 minutes. Once you have access to the Revenue online service, you can get onto the website and register yourself. And if you have any issues, you can contact the e-customs area within Revenue and they'll help you. In terms of the actions, if you are planning to move goods early in 2021, who's going to do it? Do you need an agent to submit your declarations? Have you got someone that will be able to do them? Are you going to do them yourself? Have that decision made if you're moving goods in the first quarter of 2021. Know who's going to do those declarations on your behalf, or if you're going to do them yourself, how they're going to get submitted. Do the parties within the supply chain know their responsibilities? I mentioned there are some of the safety and security requirements in the pre-boarding notification. Do the haulier moving your goods, are they aware of their requirements and what they need to do to actually move the goods as well? And again, back to the data that's required in the declaration. So the data needs to be accurate. The commodity codes need to be accurate. So you may have similar products, but they actually might have different commodity codes. So you really need to know the classification codes of your goods. Again, that valuation piece, so the value of your goods needs to be entered on the declaration. And then the origin, the goods, if you're bringing goods in from GB, it mightn't necessarily have GB origin. It might have another third country origin or even EU origin. So it's just to bear those in mind in relation to that. And as I mentioned just there a second ago, in relation to other parties, are they ready in your supply chain? So each party has a different role to play. Do they know what their role is? And that includes your suppliers in the UK or your customers in the UK. They have HMRC requirements to get the goods from point A to point B. There's a full process required there. So it could be export declaration before the import declaration, or if you're exporting here, the importing requirements in GB. So it's something to be aware of. And just a reminder that you may already be dealing with some customs formalities at import, and there's a new system coming into play in November 2020. So that's just a very brief overview, I suppose, in relation to the requirements that are there from the 1st of January. There was a lot of information. I'm happy to take questions in relation to it. And again, if there's more detailed questions or specific business models you just want to maybe run through, you can send a very specific query to the Brexit queries at Revenue.ie, And there's more information, as I said, on the Brexit website itself, on the Revenue Brexit page itself. So I'm happy to take questions there.
Okay, thank you, Ray. I've got a question here from Erica Murray, who said, when I validated my ERI number on Revenue's website, no company information appeared. Can you just elaborate on that one?
Okay, it could be the EORIs are actually validated on the EU database, so it could be that the tick box wasn't ticked when you registered, and it will be a case of that you could contact eCustoms at Revenue.ie and they'd validate, or they'd be able to validate the number for you, but they'd be able to update it on the EU database if you wanted as well.
Okay, so the contact person is who? Where should you go to get that? Sorry,
eCustoms at Revenue.ie.
eCustoms at Revenue.ie. Yeah. Okay. And another question she's come up with is, will DDP, delivery duty paid, that is, rule out the need for importing retailers to comply with the declarations?
It should do, but you need to make sure that your supplier in the UK, so if you're under DDP, it basically means they're responsible for delivery to your door as such, so taking on the import formalities. But have they the capacity to do it? Are they able to get into revenue systems to do the declarations, or do they have an agent in Ireland to do it on their behalf? Because it's a third country now, you need to be established in the EU to be able to make a declaration. If not, you need to have an agent established in the EU to do it. So it's just, they should be responsible for it, and that's what the contract would state. You have the legal basis as such, but it's have the capacity to actually do it. It's something you definitely need to clarify.
Okay. Next question that's come up, what are the requirements if you're exporting? I think it's going to come up quite a bit actually. What are the requirements if you're exporting non-food products to UK consumers, that's non-commercial consumers, and use a courier company such as somebody like a DPD?
Yeah, in the majority of cases there, the courier company will be taking on the responsibilities for the export declarations. But again, it's something you just need to check. What they will need is, they will need your EORI number. You will need to be registered for customs, because that's the minimum data they need from you will be the EORI number. They might also need commodity codes and valuations. So they might require a bit of extra information than you're used to sharing with them. So it's just to bear that in mind. And again, it's to have that conversation with DVD or the courier companies. Are they going to do that for you, to make sure that you don't make any assumptions that you may assume that your haulier or freight forwarder or a courier is going to do it? Actually ask the question, will they be able to do it for you? And in most cases for the courier companies, they are set up and they have the capacity to do it, but it's just to make sure. And again, have that data ready for them then, and ask the questions, what data do they need?
Okay. Questions around the UK VAT number. So do we now require a UK VAT number?
No, you may require a UK EORI number. It depends on, but again, it depends if you have a DDP contract, delivered duty paid into the UK, then you may need to be registered in terms of claiming back the VAT if you're responsible for the customs declarations there. But in terms of if you're exporting to the UK and it's someone else in the UK taking on responsibilities, then you won't need a UK VAT number.
Okay. There's another question here. I've been informed by Revenue that I presume this is the ERI number, is the same as my VAT number by Revenue. Could this be correct? I already import from Far East regularly.
Oh, yeah, it would. Usually it's a VAT number with the IE in front of it in the majority of cases. So the EORI number would be the VAT number with your IE number in front of it.
Okay, okay. Another question from Michael Fearon. Is there a process in place to charge consumers VAT and duty on goods that import from the UK directly, aka Amazon?
Yeah, what will happen is what currently happens with the US and any other imports for third country, it will more than likely be when it arrives at the consumer's door, you have to pay the duties before you can hand over the goods. Or there may be it depends on the models. On Post would have it at the door. Amazon may actually charge it. I'm not sure what way they operate, but they may charge it before it gets to. But it's definitely, there is a process in place between all the parcel post operators as well, that duty will apply to individuals importing as well. Okay,
so what you're saying is there could be a situation where somebody importing something from the UK direct to the consumer, the duty on that from the UK would have to be paid at the door by when those goods are delivered. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if the consumers are buying it themselves, is it? Sorry, no, what way was it phrased? If I went online, let's say, and bought something from Amazon UK, the charge would only apply when it arrived at my door because it wouldn't be part of the Amazon UK's charging model.
Right. Okay. So it could be that they're getting charged at the door by
Yes.
the delivery person. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Let me just see what else we've got here. So this is Marta. Hello. I have an online shop. DPD says we need to register for VAT in the UK to be able to send a parcel to a customer in the UK. Is this correct?
You need to register unless you're taking on the responsibilities for the import formalities in the UK. If you're just exporting, so it depends on the model that's been placed. If your contract again is that delivery door to door, you're taking on the responsibilities of the import formalities in the UK, and DPD are doing it on your behalf. So that may be the reason for it.
Okay. 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 I don't see any other questions coming through. So if anybody wants to ask any, please just go online now. Just see if there's any more. There's probably one or two more just coming through as we speak, actually. Here's one from Dawn Court. We are UK based and sell through stores in UK and Ireland. We do not have a legal entity in IE, so in Ireland, presumably. A lot of our stock comes from the Far East, so VAT and duty is paid on import. Do we pay VAT and duty again when we move the goods into Ireland, even though we're not selling to an IE entity, an Irish entity?
They're based in the UK, was it? Sorry, I missed the start.
Yes, based in the UK, sell through stores in the UK and Ireland, do not have a legal entity here. A lot of stock comes through the Far East, so VAT and duty paid on import. Do we pay VAT and duty again when they're moving the goods, presumed from the UK into Ireland?
Yes. The key, that's what I was mentioning earlier, that if you're bringing goods into the UK and it's even someone that's getting supplied from the UK, if they're released for free circulation in the UK, then there's duties charged on it. And then when they move to Ireland, there will be duties applied from the goods coming into Ireland too. So what you could do is you could keep those goods under customs supervision in the UK and then only release them either for export to Ireland, and then it's only the charge coming into Ireland, or as obviously release them onto the UK market and the charge applies there. But it's a HMRC issue really, that you need to have customs warehousing set up in the UK to allow you to avoid that situation.
Okay. Another one here from anonymous attendee. Can you confirm that in relation to NI, presume Northern Ireland, that any goods shipped from the Republic of Ireland to Northern Ireland branches do not require any additional declarations? I think that was something you mentioned at the beginning, wasn't it? This is around the
no, on all Ireland basis, like yeah. Once they're in Ireland, they're union goods and they can move to Northern Ireland without any further customs declarations.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully that answers that question. Ashling Walsh has said, hello, if supplying to a UK retailer, do you need a UK VAT number? And is it possible to act as a landed supplier, i.e. supply a UK customer with a fully landed price, including VAT plus import duty, and then reclaim VAT plus import duty?
You would need to be registered in the UK for VAT, then to be able to reclaim the VAT paid in the UK. That's the reason that a lot of the UK VAT questions have been asked, I think, because the models seem to be DDP both ways. So if you're expected to do the import formalities in the UK, you need to register for VAT there. If not, you're not going to be in a position to claim it back. So
they need to be registered for VAT in the UK in this instance?
Yeah, if you're taking on responsibility. You don't have to be, but you won't be able to claim the VAT back.
Okay. If we buy stock from a UK agent that originates from the Far East, do we pay duty twice when it's moved into the UK? So that's similar to the one we had before, isn't it?
You need to talk to your supplier and ask them, are the goods getting released in the UK? If they are, there's going to be duty charged there, and then obviously duty charged here, and you may get the cost of both. Whereas if they keep it under customs supervision in the UK, then it only applies the duties here.
So it only applies when it comes into Ireland, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. If the goods are zero rate VAT and duties, so for example, books, does a declaration need to be made, and is there an associated cost with the declaration?
The declaration would need to be made for all goods. No matter what you're bringing in, customs declarations are required. There will be a cost. An agent would charge you. Obviously, if you're doing it yourself, there's a cost in getting the software. So there is a process on the new import system. that allows the trader to do it themselves. Now the system isn't available yet until the 23rd of November, but there is a process there. Now, customs declarations aren't straightforward, so it would take a bit of competency to be able to do it, but it's something that can be done if it's only infrequent, and maybe books will be similar commodity codes, so it won't be as wide a range. So it's that type of thing, but it can be done through the revenue system once it's launched, or else it's an agent, obviously, to charge for an agent or someone to do it on your behalf.
Okay. Next one here from Tom Keane. We have a small independent gift shop with a lot of goods coming from Denmark and Holland that come through the UK. How do they stand? What should they be doing? Where can
Denmark and Holland? Yeah,
Denmark
they need
and Holland.
transit declarations. So they're EU goods, but their transit declarations are required. And again, it's the supplier would usually raise the transit. So again, it's the UK or the Dutch supplier would raises the customs or start the transit at an office of departure in those countries, and then it will come into Ireland. But it's those requirements: who's going to move the goods, who's moving the goods currently, are they doing the customs transit declarations themselves, and then to make sure it closes at the point. There'll be no duties associated with the Netherlands goods or anything like that, but it's just a case of there is actually a direct declaration required to get the goods through the UK.
Right, and presumably coming from Denmark or Holland, is there any direct routes that can be taken now at this stage rather than going through the land bridge?
There is direct routes, a number of them, and I think even this week there is more frequent ones announced. But again, I suppose the retailers themselves mightn't have a huge input into it, but they need to talk to their hauliers or the freight forwarders to encourage them to use it, one, and ask, can they move them on to maybe ones that are going, especially if their goods aren't short shelf life or anything like that, and you have the capacity that you don't need this just-in-time models, that if you have capacity of a few days, there should be no reason not to use the. Now, there is costs again associated with it, but it's something to bear in mind that the costs of actually using the land bridge are significant as well now after the 1st of January.
And presumably the delays, Ray, are you anticipating, I know you're looking at it from a revenue perspective, but you've been working on this for a while. Are you expecting delays through the UK and potentially in Ireland as a result of Brexit in the early stages?
Yeah, if you're using the land bridge, you cannot but expect delays. It's the amount of requirements. I know I mentioned the transit declaration there that gets you from, let's say, Ireland through the UK into France, but you actually need to do one, the pre-boarding notification in Ireland. You need to do a similar pre-boarding notification in the UK. You need the Kent access. You also need to do a pre-boarding notification for the French, so an SI Brexit one. So it's not just one, it's not the delays, it's the additional administration costs as well. So it's definitely something that if you are moving goods by the land bridge, make sure you have discussions with your haulier or freight forwarder. What do they anticipate? Have they everything set up? If you have all those steps done, there's a better chance of less delays, but you need to have all the steps done to ensure your goods move through that land bridge. And then even at import and export, if you're expecting a supplier to complete the export declarations on your behalf in the UK, to make sure they have them done to get the goods to the port to leave, to arrive in Ireland, and then vice versa. If you're sending goods to the UK and you're expecting them to do the import declarations, if they don't have them done, your goods don't get to the customer. So again, it's that kind of type of process. It's not just one step. It's the full process needs to be done to get the goods from point A to point B. Okay.
There's a question here from Les Griffin. Where can we find out the duty rates? So is there somewhere that we can go and where you can find that?
If you know the commodity codes, it's a 10-digit code at import. You should be able to get them maybe from a supplier. They might give you an 8-digit, but you get a 10-digit code. Once you have that 10-digit code, you can go onto a website. It's an EU database. It's called TARIC, T-A-R-I-C, and you can put in the country of origin. Now, if you try it now, it's obviously the UK isn't a third country just yet. What you can do even for now is if you put in China or Australia, they'll give you an idea of the duty rates that may apply to the UK goods. And then even if you put in Canada, if there is a free trade agreement, maybe to give you a scope of the type of duty rates that apply.
Okay, there's another one here. I'm not sure whether this one has been asked. If it has, apologies, but we have an Ireland entity that sells e-commerce orders to consumers in Ireland, but the fulfillment is done by a UK entity. The Ireland entity purchases these goods from the UK entity and sell on to the consumers. Are the customs and duties paid by the Ireland entity or the consumer? It's a bit of a mouthful. Can you have a go at that?
Yeah, there's a lot in that. That could be one for the Brexit queries, but I can give the Brexit queries at Revenue.ie, to email in. There's VAT implications there in terms of your now, import VAT even because you're going, I'm not sure where the goods are coming from in that scenario. Sorry, that's the issue there. If they're coming from the UK or if they're coming from other EU or other third countries, in terms of customs declarations. But if the goods are in Ireland and they're just being sold to customers here, there's no customs declarations. It's just that VAT piece. So I need more information in relation to it. That there is VAT implications, I suppose, outside of customs declarations.
Okay, so just on that, I have a couple more questions I'm going to ask you in a second, but you mentioned there places for people to go to get more information, and you mentioned an email address, I think you said, and a contact. Can you just repeat any contact center?
Obviously the main ones I have up in the presentation was the Brexit page and the Brexit queries at Revenue.ie, and you can even email in and we'll give you the links. But the one for the ORI was eCustoms at Revenue.ie. And then the one for the classification, so getting your duties, is TARIC. It's a EU database. So even if you Google the EU database and TARIC, TARIC, it will come up and you can enter your details in there. But there is information on the Revenue Brexit page in relation to classification, and the links are available there too.
Okay, all right. So, and we'll make sure those go up on our membership newsletter that's going out tomorrow morning. So another point here, have the duty figures been decided yet on all products? I know we talked about duty earlier, but have they been decided yet on all of the products?
Because we don't know if there's going to be a free trade agreement or not, they haven't been decided. But as I was saying there, if you use that TARIC website, if you put in China, that's who we deal with, or Australia, we deal with on WTO for want of what the UK will be under an no deal. So that will give you an idea of the rates that would apply there. If you use China, you might get hit by those anti-dumping ones, which wouldn't apply in the UK. So maybe Australia is the best one to use to see what it is. And then if you go and use Canada, that will give you an idea of what would happen under a free trade agreement.
Right. Okay. So let's hope we're getting a free trade agreement. So am I right in saying if goods get delivered to Northern Ireland, this is an interesting loophole one, Ray, for you. If goods get delivered to Northern Ireland, then shipped to the Republic of Ireland, it bypasses all the declarations, etc. Processes would run as they are now. So if I make sure that product goes from Stranraer to Larne and down, does it bypass everything?
No.
Right.
The requirements that, no, well, it's
too easy, wouldn't it?
Northern Ireland Protocol will finally set out what it is. So the joint committee discussions will set out the requirements there. But what it will be is that if you're moving goods into Northern Ireland, you're required to complete an import declaration under the UCC, the EU rules, and the duties will be paid there to HMRC, and then you can move it on. So you still have to complete import formalities in the Northern Ireland from GB, and then once they're released for free circulation there, they can move.
So this is in effect where the border comes down the Irish Sea, are we saying?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
now the full details of it aren't finalised yet, but that's the concept, is that those declarations will apply.
Okay. Okay. A question here from Dawn Court. Are there any thresholds that VAT and duty is payable on when importing into Ireland? For example, selling from UK entity and supplied from the UK warehouse via the website to an Irish customer, is VAT and duty only applicable for a sales value over a certain amount or on any value?
There's a certain amount now. I think it's €22. Below that, it's not applied. But from the 1st of July next year, there's VAT on everything. It was supposed to come in January, but it's pushed out to July. So from the 1st of July next year, there'll be VAT due on everything. Customs duty is €150. So anything under €150 wouldn't have. There's details on the website in relation to some scenarios we have put up. I think it could be designer jeans or something like that as an example, that if you're bringing them in and it goes over a certain level. The thing to remember is that the customs duty is applied on the cost, insurance and freight of the goods coming in. Customs duty is on top of that, and then the VAT is on top of the customs duty, cost, insurance and freight. So the VAT will be slightly higher even than just 23% straight on the invoice price. It's actually the customs duty on top of that. So it's something to bear in mind as well if you're doing some kind of cash flow calculations.
Okay. One here from Donald Quinn. If we're selling goods imported from the UK for sale to commercial fishing vessels at 0%, do we need to pay VAT when entering the country? Probably not one for everybody, but clearly one that's important to Donald.
Say that again.
Sorry. So if we're selling goods imported from the UK for sale to commercial fishing vessels at 0%, do we need to pay VAT when entering the country?
There will be import VAT due on it, but again, it depends on the products. Again, the VAT rate could be 0. but it's, yeah, I think if you email it could be, because I'm just thinking there's exemptions on stuff that's going on fishing vessels that be going outside the territory again. There's a few regulations around that too. It just depends on what exactly products are and where are they going out to sea as such and that kind of thing.
Okay, so that's quite a specific one that you need to probably, Donald needs a bit more advice.
More detail.
So, yeah. Valerie Noonan, we are in a UK buying group with goods coming from both UK and other Far Eastern countries through the group. Invoices raised by the UK group. Will we pay 2 duties? So this is a common theme that seems to be coming across about double duty.
It's a common business model to have the distribution center almost in the UK, like, so it's something that we're coming across in all sectors. Again, it's if the goods that are coming to Ireland remain under customs supervision, if they're arriving in the UK first, then they can be moved through an export declaration out of the warehouse as such, and then you just pay the duties on arrival into Ireland. But if they're not under that customs warehousing procedure, the duties will be paid in the UK, and then there will be duties applied on arrival into Ireland as well, based on the country of origin anyway, but those duties would apply both.
Right, so this is going to put prices up in Ireland, in fact, isn't it?
It's back to that, trying to make sure that either the UK distribution centre is a customs warehouse as such and has the customs authorisation, and they only release the goods to Ireland, so you only pay the duties on arrival in Ireland.
Right. Okay, and I think this is probably the last one, but John O'Brien has said there's going to be a lot of confusion for a while until people get used to this new regime. Absolutely, I would concur with that, John. Will there be fines for not being fully compliant straight away, or will there be a bit of leeway for a few months? And it's a very important question.
Yeah, the difficulty with it is the leniency in terms of if you don't have a declaration done, the goods won't move into Ireland. They won't be able to leave GB, or they won't be able to leave Ireland. So you have to have the customs declarations done, and to meet that even standard, there's a lot of information required. In terms of errors then on the declarations themselves, obviously there's going to be mistakes made in the first few weeks and first few months because people are getting used to it, and it could be a case of even incorrect commodity codes and they need to be updated and flagged in the months afterwards. But there's, I suppose, a full customs audit procedure will take place in all declarations as well, so that's something to bear in mind, that try to get your data accurate on the declarations, or whoever's doing the declarations for you, to ensure you're giving them the accurate data. So again, even in terms of commodity code, if you get that commodity code wrong, you could be paying 1, too little, which would be chased up, but 2, you could be paying too high a duty rate. So make sure you get your commodity codes right, that you're paying the right amount of duty.
Okay, all right. And then one last final question. I know we talked about this mixed loads situation, but is it likely that 100% of the mixed loads are going to be opened and inspected? So are we going to have that scenario?
If you talk about SVS goods, so agri-food checks, it's 100% check, documentary check. And there's 100, so there, I think it scales down then on the different type of products, but there's high percentage of checks required in agri-food products coming into the EU. So yeah, anything that's moving, any food products or plant products or live animals, obviously, anything coming in like that, they're going to be checked. They're going to hit the profiles, and it's that key thing that if you do have a mixed load, if you have goods of electronics on board with food items, they're going to be sitting there waiting for the process to take place in the ports.
Okay, and finally, we'll call this the last one. Is it possible to open an account with C&E, I presume it's Customs and Excise, for payment of duties, VAT prior to delivery, as making funds available at the back door on delivery is fraught with difficulties? So this is all around payment. What's the story with that? Do you know, Ray?
If you're on a customs declaration, so if someone's doing a declaration on your behalf, I'm presuming this is a business now rather than an individual, which would be the more likely to happen if you're an individual. If someone turns up in your door, there isn't an option there really. But in terms of a business, that a declaration is done. So if you have your URI number, you have that C&E number as such, and that TAN number that I mentioned, trader account number, and you can top up that at any stage. So you can do it 24/7. You can do it by credit card, debit card, or a single debit instruction. So if you know the goods that are coming in, you know when they're coming in, you could, let's say, what they say, Thursday, if you knew goods are coming in tomorrow, arriving into Ireland tomorrow, you can top up your account with 300 euros, let's say, to cover the duty that you know is going to be paid on it on the VAT. Your agent, whoever's doing your declaration on your behalf, will use that TAN number in the payment field. And then once the declaration clears, that money will be taken out of your account. So that can be done. It's once you have your URI number, you have that trader account number, and it's there for you to use. And again, it depends on what way the process is. Maybe the agent is paying on your behalf and invoicing you afterwards. But in terms of if you wanted to be in control of paying it, you can do that. And then that TAN number is also linked to the option of having a deferred payment. Whereas if you're a regular importer, maybe it might make more sense to have maybe €1,000 there the whole time and pay the guarantee on that. So it's options available. If you want to email us in, we can send you a link with all the payment options.
Okay, just a quick one. Does this apply to Ampost deliveries? What's the story with Ampost deliveries?
They will be doing declarations too. So again, when they turn up on your door, there could be a duty amount paid.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So just to confirm then, you mentioned three things: the URI or the EORI number, the TAN, and you mentioned one other, I think, that people need to have immediately.
The URI number is the main one, and then the TAN is obviously for making payments. No, the third thing would be know who's doing your declarations.
Know who's doing.
If you're going to move goods, who's doing the declarations? Goods won't move without those declarations, so you need to know who's doing them. Don't make assumptions.
Okay, so those are the three key things: the EORI number, the TAN, and know who's making your declarations. Yeah. And just finally, before we let you go, Ray, just in terms of where people can go to get further advice, do you want to just repeat those email addresses again?
Yeah, so our own one is Revenue.ie/Brexit, and there's a lot of information there now. There's a lot of links, but if you go into the customs declarations, roles and responsibilities link, that's a useful one. And there's also essential steps for businesses. That's a useful one to start on it, especially if you're just starting into it. There's other information in relation to authorizations, but as I said, if you get those three key things done first, then you can worry about maybe doing further authorizations afterwards. But I think they're, for now, 8 weeks out, you need to just get those basic steps done.
Great stuff. All right, Ray, thank you very much. You're a fount of knowledge. So I'm sure that we'll probably be coming back to you with a few more queries as the time goes on.
Yeah, no problem.
You know, and all the very best with dealing with the move to Brexit. I suppose you're going to be at your busiest in December and January. But thank you so much for your advice and your guidance today to retailers. That's been really good. And thank you to everybody who's attended. And we'll run more of these Brexit sessions over the next few weeks as well. Thanks a million, everybody. And